Okay, well, welcome everyone. I know that some of you are here and seeing this beautiful picture. Kelly is going to be going through some slides, but while we're waiting for some others to join us, I'm just going to provide you with some information. So I have started the recording for tonight's event, and it's going to be available by Monday, May 12th, and you'll be able to find that, and I'll put this in the chat, but it's www.youtube.com/@AARPNH1. So thank you for joining our program tonight. My name is Linda, and I'm your host for this evening's presentation with Kelly Dwyer from Nature Opportunities. I am also a volunteer with AARP New Hampshire. Working with me is Ashley Davis. Ashley is the Associate State Director of Outreach and Advocacy. She will be monitoring the chat box and raising your questions and comments throughout the program. So if you have a question, please put it in the chat. We welcome your questions and will address them periodically throughout the demonstration. AARP has been promoting the health and well-being of older adults for over 60 years. In New Hampshire, AARP serves as a trusted resource for our members and the public with informative, innovative, and fun virtual events as a means of connection and inclusion. AARP has numerous free healthy living resources on its website, which include staying fit, wellness and longevity, and information on healthy eating, as well as staying sharp. There is something for everyone, and I'll put a link in the chat for that as well. In tonight's interactive workshop, Kelly will show us how to explore simple sensory techniques in our garden spaces. We will also learn how our gardens can help us reduce stress and how to create an action plan for year-round personal well-being, not only in our gardens, but in other outside spaces. Kelly Dwyer, the founder of Nature Education Opportunities, is an award-winning environmental educator and certified New Hampshire elementary teacher. She has been creating and delivering engaging programming for audiences of all ages for over 15 years. As a certified wellness coach, Kelly also brings a deep understanding of the numerous benefits of connecting with the natural world to reduce stress, improve health, and embrace a more mindful approach to life and learning. An avid gardener and cook, she loves to spend time with her family, which includes her husband and 2 daughters. And Kelly, with that, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Linda. And thank you all for joining us this evening. You should really congratulate yourself for prioritizing your wellness, your well-being. And like Linda mentioned, we will be talking primarily as using gardens, and I'll get into more what I mean by defining garden spaces in a moment. But any of the principles and activities and strategies we talk about tonight can certainly be used in any outdoor spaces. And I would also suggest if you have houseplants, and it's thundering and lightning here where I am in southern New Hampshire. So tonight would be a perfect opportunity for me to sit by those houseplants and practice some of what we'll go over this evening. So we can be creative with what we mean by garden spaces. Well, May is a perfect time to start really embracing a whole new way of looking at connecting with your outside environment. My whole mission of starting this company about 4 years ago was to provide opportunities for people to connect with our natural world in a really easy, quick, accessible way. Many people around me think, well, that's going hiking on the weekend, and maybe I can fit that in. So I'm trying to have us reframe and almost demystify what do we mean by natural connection. So you'll hear me talk a lot about that this evening. So just to give you an idea in terms of our agenda, the things that we'll touch upon that will frame our conversation, and I will try to remember to break after some of these really quite defined areas of our agenda. So we'll talk briefly about what do we mean by garden spaces, and then we'll also kind of zoom out a little bit and think about healthy ecosystems. What do we need to have a healthy ecosystem, not only for us, but for the wildlife that many of us as gardeners really hope to attract to enhance the value of what we're putting out there and enhance our own well-being by observing these wonderful creatures that we share this planet with. And then we'll sort of come back in and think about what types of benefits that we can derive from connecting with our natural environment, and then using our gardens. I call it, my gardens anyway, as my wellness studios. Just by reframing it and calling it a wellness studio rather than a garden, I have found myself much more engaged with the different areas that I've planted, really thinking about how can I become aware and really focused on my own well-being, my stress level, my sleep, eating outside, all of that, like I said, we'll get into. And then we'll wrap up with how do we actually have year-round engagement in our outdoor or our garden spaces? Many of us, I'm sure many of you are probably phoning in from the Northeast. So I've been doing some work around what does it look like to be outside in the winter and in really embracing winter connections. So I will kind of give you some tips on that. Okay, so defining our garden spaces. Now, this picture on the left is part of my backyard, and I've been at this location in Hooksett for about 20 years. So this has been a work in progress. And I have got to the point where maybe I've put too many gardens in because sometimes I feel overwhelmed and I'm not really utilizing the space as I intended. Hence me reframing it to my wellness studio. My mother-in-law has a beautiful planter that we put in for her that has tomatoes and it has some other annuals color. She gets all kinds of pollinators here to pollinate those tomato plants. And she really loves the color, the pops of colors that attract all kinds of insects and birds. So that's one other way to define a garden space. It may be a back patio or deck, or even clusters of beautiful planters that you artistically have put to delineate an outdoor patio, or just to simply provide some color and texture in your outdoor space. So whatever you put out there for yourself that you define as a garden, you can use everything that we'll chat about tonight to really enhance your well-being. Okay, so let's just kind of again frame this next few slides in terms of if we're offering wildlife value, which again, many of the gardeners that I do talks with around the state garden clubs, this is something that is really a hot topic. People wanting to bring wildlife in and provide alternative food, water, and shelter for sort of our neighbors that we share this space with. So it's really important, especially in the early spring and into the midsummer months. Many of these animals, then birds and insects that we're attracting, it's all about reproductive success. So if we can think about offering good, nutritious sources of protein and natural sugars for these animals, for example, like the monarch butterfly is only using the milkweed plant as its host. Is its host plant for its caterpillars. So putting in some milkweed is really a beneficial thing for that particular species. If you can leave some leaf litter in some of your gardens, you'll encourage insects like crickets and grasshoppers and other insects that are the basis of the food chain that are needed for our birds and our chipmunks and some of the other mammals that we hope to attract. So it's all about providing a variety. If you think about going to your favorite restaurant, you like to see a variety of things on that menu. Same thing with wildlife. The more that we can offer in terms of diversity, the richer and the healthier that habitat will be. Okay, so healthy ecosystem elements, water. Water is essential for all living systems, all living animals and creatures. This is on the left is a big pond that I put in about 14 years ago. We used to have an above ground 18-foot round swimming pool for our daughters. And I had this vision of this pond with a recirculating pump and a stream bed and a waterfall, even while we were going to shop at the pool store. So I kind of knew what I wanted there when the pool was no longer used after about 5 years. So I have put this in, and I have to be honest with you, it is 1,000 times more work than the pool ever was. But the enjoyment level of what I get when I see the frogs come up when the ice thaws, and I see tadpoles when the toads are mating, and flowers blooming, and birds stopping by to bathe and sip water. So this is, again, an extreme example, I think, about having a viable, clean source of water for drinking and bathing. One alternative, if you have a deck space or a little nook in your backyard, is to put a little bubbler. So the sound of running water attracts a lot of birds, particularly those birds that are migrating from warmer climates and tropics right now. May is, again, a huge month for bird migration, territory establishment, and nesting. So putting a little source of clean water, especially if it has a bubble feature, is really a way to encourage more wildlife in your yard. The final picture over here on the right is actually something I created for butterflies. Butterflies need to what they call puddle. They will take up minerals in soil, sand, and even some gritty type of roadside material through their proboscis. So you can encourage butterflies to come to your yard by simply putting a terracotta little dish that's I have this one is kind of ceramic in the interior so that it doesn't leach the water through the terracotta, but there's lots of different things you can get. Make sure it's shallow, put some gravel, put some sand, put some soil, and a few larger rocks in the middle, and just kind of wet it, fill it with water, and it's amazing if you put it out in the sun, butterflies that you will see come and puddle in that particular water source. So that's a fun way, a very inexpensive, easy way to increase the amount of visibility for insects. Okay, in terms of shelter, these are the essential things: food, water, shelter. And a lot of school kids know these and can recite them immediately. But shelter is also a really critical component if we hope to attract certain wildlife to our garden spaces or our outdoor spaces. So think about birds that are nesting or birds that are going to roost or sleep at night. They need safe, secure places to do that. So if you have plantings in your yard, if you have evergreens, or even large trees with some canopy, as well as some shrubs underneath, you're offering incredible resources for these animals that are looking for that sheltering aspect. And also in terms of hibernation. So you can just have a little pile of rocks out in your yard, or even an area on your deck or your patio that has some attractive rock features, like this little lower piece where you have hens and chickens and some other succulents. And what you'll find is that a lot of these insects will actually lay their eggs in that, and they'll overwinter. They need to kind of have some sheltered, secure places. And then also you could do, if you have a larger property, you could do a brush pile so that you could actually create shelter. This morning, as a matter of fact, this is a brush pile that I created. We probably about 5 years ago. So we just kind of gather large sticks and we put it around. Someone once said, "Is that a beaver lodge out in your woods?" How I wish. But just this morning, I watched as a couple of very, very young squirrels were leaving a knothole that's in the woods. They were just sort of venturing out. This is probably their first field trip on their own. And a beautiful red fox, because she was out hunting for her kits, she got up into that brush pile and was chasing one of the young squirrels round and round. And I didn't know who to root for, because I wanted the squirrel to have an opportunity to sort of experience at least a full day out of the nest hole. But then I thought that fox has to feed her kits too. So I think that I rooted enough that the little squirrel was able to scamper off to another tree and live to see possibly another day, but I'm sure that fox will be back. So shelter for some animals provides another opportunity for other animals to find a food source. So you can see that sort of yin and yang of our ecosystems. So again, all of these particular systems play a very important role in healthy ecosystems, and we can't separate ourselves from these ecosystems and habitats. We are part of this. So the healthier we can offer it for our animals, then we will be healthy as well. So we think about insects, again, as I mentioned, are the basis of the food chain. Having a healthy, just diversity of insects leads to healthy birds, healthy amphibians, and reptiles. And this little guy right here, the possum, some of you may have seen him on slides before when I've done workshops. We call him Hank, and we see him on game camera every night rousing around the yard. So this particular day or evening, he happened to come up the back steps of my glass room where we're having dinner. And he looked in so longingly, like, "Oh boy, look at them all cozy eating." So I tend to personify a lot of the animals that I see. But so again, creating habitat that offers a variety of food, water, shelter for a lot of living things. And you can do that in very, very small garden spaces as well. Okay, so now we're going to switch over a little bit. And so we think about what we can offer, who we can attract. And then as we are offering these types of food, water, shelter, and we're creating these garden spaces and exploring outside, many of you probably already know this, but all kinds of studies. It's really just a plethora of research that supports what many of us already know. When we do connect with our natural world, even for just 5 minutes, we notice that there's an increase in our cognitive abilities and our focus. Oftentimes, if I'm inside in my office and I'm working on things, emails, or creating different programs, and I have that sort of I that almost like writer's block. I'll go outside with a cup of tea just for a few minutes and I come in feeling quite refreshed. Many of you probably have experienced that as well. Or if you have children at home or grandchildren, you'll say, go outside and play, and they'll come in, and all that energy that they have will have been sort of spent and they can be much more focused on their homework. So these are particular benefits for all people, but mainly adults. Children have a few more things that research supports for them. One thing that I find really, really critical right now is a decrease in our stress response and anxiety. We are living in really very stressful times, and it's important that we can find ways to manage that stress. And I'll get into what stress can do to us in an adverse way in a moment, and also more efficient immune functioning. We noticed, or physicians noticed, an increase in immunity during times of COVID when we spent more time outside. Classrooms were outside, and many of us rediscovered our natural world. Unfortunately, it had to be something as catastrophic as COVID-19, but hopefully we can hang on to that discovery. It was kind of the silver lining in that 5-year period of time that we experienced. And also, we will experience an increase in overall motivation and confidence. There's something about the pheromones that the trees release, the fresh air, and just seeing green that studies strongly support that it does increase our motivation and our confidence. So if you have a big task ahead of you, look out a window, get outside for a few moments, and you will feel more motivated and confident about what you're doing. And also an increase in energy, and particularly emotional connection or well-being with others. Many of us have walking partners or walking groups, or even when we're outside and we're running into people we don't know, it's more conducive for that friendliness and connecting with our fellow human beings. So lots of benefits that you, again, I'm sure have already realized, but science strongly supports that all of these are actual things that happen to us physiologically as well as emotionally. Okay, so now that we have framed this as we want to offer these types of things, food, water, shelter for wildlife, so we have really thriving backyard spaces, backyard gardens. It offers us so many benefits. The next thing we'll talk about is what do we do now? How do we actually utilize this? But I think before I go on to that next component of our program, I want to make sure I give an opportunity, Ashley and Linda, if there are any sort of questions that pertain to what we've just covered.
There are actually, so that's a great place to take a break. So someone said that they have a few monarch butterflies in the summer. So that was very nice. Someone asked, don't you have to worry about rats if you have the brush piles? That many people that have chickens here have also had some problems with rats, so mice or whatever.
Okay, that's an excellent question. Anytime we have backyard sort of farms, poultry, it obviously will increase rodents because they're very opportunistic. A couple of things. So if you find that you have an increase in sort of undesirable rodents, the worst thing you could do is put out rodenticides, because what's happening, and a lot of wildlife rehabilitators are finding that there are those top predators like that fox I mentioned, owls and hawks, that are being inadvertent victims of those rodenticides, because what rodenticides does is it prevents blood clotting. So if they consume animals that have eaten the rodenticides, it moves up through the food chain, and those top predators that actually keep some of those rodent populations in check are inadvertently being poisoned and killed, and therefore the problem is becoming worse. So I think it depends on your own backyard situation. If you find that you have an abundance of rodents like that. There are ways that you can sort of deter them. Maybe if you feel that having a brush pile wouldn't be in your best interest, by no means would you be putting something like that out. But do your research on the internet. There are ways to sort of deter rodents without poisoning them and therefore those top predators that we need.
Yeah.
Excellent question. I'm glad that that was raised.
And then somebody else was asking, where do you buy milkweed?
Okay, so the common milkweed is the one that kind of runs. You see the plumes of seeds, that little parachutes in the fall. You get any good reputable garden center, you can get a variety called swamp milkweed, which is it's better behaved in some of gardens that are smaller, smaller leaves, smaller flowers, but just as effective in terms of being a host plant for the monarch butterfly. So look for swamp milkweed, and you can plant it, and it sort of stays put, where the wild or the common milkweed has a habit of really spreading. If you do have it, you can easily pull it out. You just reach down near the ground and pull that stalk right out. So it's manageable, but swamp milkweed, you'll be less frustrated if you like a tidier garden.
And then someone that likes the idea of the water features that you're talking about is asking, they live in a townhouse, and so they're kind of on the fourth floor, but if they tried to have some smaller type of a bubbler, how often do you have to clean it? They want to make sure it's healthy for the birds and the butterflies.
Sure, that's a great question. Oh, I love these questions. What an audience. So anything that we have outside, like hummingbird feeders, water features, water features should be sort of rinsed out daily, every other day, to mitigate mosquitoes breeding, and also mildew and mold. So if it's easy enough to just take the water out, if you're out on your patio or your balcony, and you can do that without causing too much of a commotion, that would be great. And then just kind of rinse it out with cold water and refill it. I have like a scrub brush. It looks like a huge toothbrush that I use that to just sort of clean out my bird baths. And I do leave them up year round, so that I saw a robin bathing in them today. But it's just like anything. We want to kind of keep things that could inadvertently make our wildlife diseased or sick. We want to be just responsible stewards of that space that we're providing.
And then another question, what plants deter insects?
Oh boy, it depends on where you are, your particular, your geographic area, but I know like gardeners, a lot of people with vegetable gardens will put marigold. So that's a great question for your local cooperative extension. They are ones that most of them have master gardeners that are quite proficient to answer that for your particular area and what type of plants you're looking to put in. But most times just letting nature do its thing will keep balance. It's when we interfere and we spray and we put pesticides and herbicides down, we create that imbalance in our gardens that then leads to more problems. It's like taking an antibiotic. We disrupt the gut microbiome. Same thing if we target a species to eradicate it, and it actually may be a beneficial insect. So we have to kind of know what we're targeting. We want to make sure we keep that variety so that we have an overall healthy habitat. But the cooperative extensions are an excellent resource for a lot of these type of questions for your area.
Okay, and that's all I have for questions for the
All
moment.
right, excellent. Keep them coming. They're wonderful. Okay, so just a quick little shout out for brain chemistry. So many of us know about the limbic system, that primitive reptilian system that we has been with us since we sort of evolved, tens of thousands of years ago, and it's responsible for constantly taking in sensory information, coding it. Is that a threat? Is it a threat to us? Our survival. So unfortunately, that system still operates like that. So a lot of things that our brain perceives as threats, it produces stress hormones to kind of get us ready for action. The cortisol, the adrenaline. I'm reading a lot about cortisol lately because I think we're becoming even more stressed than we were probably 5 years ago. And then subsequently, those hormones prepare us for fight, flight, or freeze so we can take action to keep safe. Well, And what happens is we need to actually be physically active to burn those off. So if we're not as active as we should be, or have been over time, evolving as a species, those hormones continue to circulate in our body, and they lead to chronic inflammation and stress to accumulate. And it's kind of a vicious cycle. So one thing that we can do, again, nature studies support this as really almost like medicine. Get out in nature, and your brain will able to produce those feel good hormones that so many of us are trying to have more of in our life. So this is something that, again, science and research supports, that the production of these four key positive or happy hormones, many people call them, we will experience them when we're outside. Okay, so our garden as our wellness studio. So I have three main areas that I'll be sort of focusing on for the rest of the program, to sort of share with you simple and easy to learn and manage activities. Because the way I am, if it's not something that's simple and I can remember to do it and it's kind of quick and easy, it doesn't happen. So I feel like I'm probably not alone in that respect. So, and one thing that is really important is most of us live in the proximity of some green space, whether it's our garden, maybe a park down the street. So all of these type of activities can be practiced either in our backyards or relatively close to where we live. So we'll talk about centering breathing techniques, how that is so critical for our well-being and our calm and sense of peace. Stretching for calm. Many of us are spending a lot of time sort of hovering over a laptop, a device, and we're noticing that tension is starting to build up in our upper back, our shoulders, and our neck. So I have some little tips on that one. And then also using our using our senses to really engage. I was thinking this morning, I was having my coffee out on my front porch, and I've been becoming in the habit of leaving my phone inside just to have that 15 minutes to myself, watching the hummingbirds come, and I was listening to the orioles around, and I thought, oh, wow, use your head, Kelly, because your head has four of your main five senses that we'll get into. So I got myself laughing, thinking, use your head. Well, in many ways, I should be using my head. But so anyway, centering breathing techniques. Now, if we think about it, if you watch a toddler or an infant breathe, they use that beautiful belly breathing. They fill their lungs and they bring that beautiful, rich oxygen all the way down into almost like into their diaphragm, the top of their belly, where when we become school aged around the age 5 or 6, we lose that because we are now sitting much more often. And sitting isn't necessarily conducive for deep belly breathing, that restorative breath that calms the central nervous system. We tend to become more shallow upper respiratory breathers, which isn't oxygenating our body and providing that sense of calm. And having a fully oxygenated blood supply by deep breathing will reduce physical and emotional stress. And I think that is imperative nowadays. And the techniques that I'm going to go over in a moment are easy to master and easy to practice. One thing that to reference back to the limbic system, I look at the limbic system again, that sort of primitive system that's always on alert for our protection, as almost like a small toddler. Doesn't necessarily know if something is really happening or if it's just something that we're calling to mind again, a memory. So it can be, I won't say tricked, but we can work with it pretty easily to produce that sense of calm. So even by taking a few deep breaths and thinking about calming your nervous system, if you do that a couple of times, all it will take is a calm, deep breath for your central nervous system to almost like say, okay, all right, this is calm time. So when we're doing centering or deep breathing, the first thing we want to do is just be mindful of it. Pay attention to your shoulders. Are they up around your ears? Sort of relax your shoulders, maybe give them a few just gentle rolls. And then these particular breath sequences can be done either sitting down, and I'm going to stay seated because I think it's kind of easier to master them while you're sitting. And you can certainly do those out in your garden. So if you have a favorite camp chair or a wicker patio set, this is lovely to go outside and do this. So the first one is what we call bee breath. And for those of you who practice yoga, you may have already seen and experienced bee breath. The idea of it is when we're deep breathing, we always want to take that inhalation through our nose. And make sure you intentionally expand out your belly. So you feel like your belly may even be sitting on your lap, that type of deep breathing. And when we exhale, we always want to exhale deeper through our mouth. So breath in through the nose and breathe out deeply through the mouth. So bee breath adds a fun dimension to this, and kids love to do this. So if you have children in your life, grandchildren, or your own children, or nieces and nephews, this is a fun one to do with kids, because the way we're going to breathe out, we're going to be simulating what it sounds like, almost like a swarm of honeybees coming our way. So you'll breathe in deeply through your nose, and then at the same time, just gently block your ears so you almost don't hear sounds outside. And as you breathe out through your mouth, sort of hum. So you and then what this does is it almost creates this vibrational sense in our neck and our head, which can be, I find it very invigorating. At first, it was kind of odd, but getting used to it, I really enjoy this. So deep breath in through your nose and exhale out through your mouth, humming while you block your ears. You may even find that your lips are vibrating. So doing that a couple of times is really kind of fun. In fact, I can almost feel like this bolt of energy going down through my back and my shoulders. The next sequence I call mountain breathing, a little bit more involved. So I'll walk us through this. So what it does is you can pretend on one hand that you have a mountain range with 5 beautiful peaks. And at the top of each of these peaks, you can think about a favorite memory, favorite word, an affirmation, so that again, you're linking these things that you're doing for yourself, these positive messaging, to your nervous system. So it's kind of, as soon as I put my hand up like this now, my nervous system calms down because I do the mountain breathing quite a bit. So my nervous system almost like got noticed, like, oh, wait a minute, Kelly's going to do mountain breathing. Things are relaxed and pretty chilled out here. And then on your opposite hand, you'll get one finger that will represent your hiker. So again, your idea is to actually touch the hiker to the peaks as you go up and down. That solidifies this particular technique, and it puts it deeper into the memory bank in your limbic system as something peaceful. So breathe in through your nose, deep breath to that first peak. Hold it as you think about something, a positive affirmation, and then breathe out through your mouth, bringing that hiker down into the first valley. Breathe in deeply through your nose to the next peak, and then down into the valley. You can see the sequence that we're doing. Okay, this is the tallest peak. So breathe in deeply through your nose. Think of that affirmation or positive memory, and then down into the valley, exhaling through your mouth. Breathe in deeply through your nose, fill that belly up with that beautiful oxygen, and then down into the valley, exhaling through your mouth. This last peak, our little pinky finger, is small, but it really has a big exhale on the back side of it. I'm going to switch my hiker here so you can see. So breathe in through your nose, hold it, and then the longest, slowest exhale through your mouth all the way down until you reach your wrist. So what you're doing is, again, you're pairing your hiker to your mountain range so that it involves not only your imagination, but your sense of touch. I have found that if I get myself in a situation where I'm feeling overwhelmed or stressed, all I have to do now is just simply touch that hiker to my thumb, and I can reduce my sense of overwhelm and that physical and emotional stress. So that's something that's great, where you don't have to, whip out your mountain range if you're in sort of a crowd and people are wondering who you're waving at. So you can use that technique very easily. Okay, so let's move on to stretches for calm. As I mentioned, many of us are sitting at desks, sitting over laptops, sitting in meetings, driving. We're used to this position. And I was in a doctor's office with my mother-in-law the other day, and I was really kind of alarmed when I saw people on their phones, and this is what's happening. You know, the phone's sitting in the lap, and the hyperextension in the neck. No wonder why we're having so many neck and upper shoulder issues now, and physically that's causing a lot of blockage of energy and tension. So these stretches are simple, and they're designed to relieve that tension in a very gentle way. And they're fun to do outside, particularly, but again, you can do them anytime, anywhere, and they can be done in a seated position as well. So the first one that I thought of, I had a sunflower plant on my glass porch, and I was curious. I was watching it as the bloom came each day, and it truly was tracking with the sun. That bloom, as much as it could, I'd have to keep rotating the pot because it would the sunflower itself was tracking with the sun. And I thought, what a fun way to simulate movement of our neck. So sprouting sunflower, I call, and you can imagine that your upper thoracic area into your neck and even up into the back of your head is that stalk that is going to hold up your beautiful sunflower, your face. So what you can do is you can imagine now, you can bring your neck gently down, and please be mindful if you have neck or cervical issues, just you know your body. So do what feels comfortable for you. So you bring your sunflower down, it's dark, and now the morning light is coming. And you're actually, I use this to be the leaves, you're gently bringing your sunflower, the flower head up, and you're starting to look out at the sun. And then over the course of the day, the sun is tracking. So you're moving your neck around. It's really a neck stretch that's just kind of fun to imagine it as a sunflower. And then at the end of the day, when the sun sets, your flower goes back. So you can kind of do a few days stretch, really easy, takes less than a minute. And I can actually feel the tension that was in the back of my neck from sitting all day starting to break up a little. The next one is butterfly wings. And for though it sounds like a bunch of you have noticed monarch butterflies in the past. So I'm sure you're just excited to find those chrysalises. There's nothing more gorgeous in nature than a monarch chrysalis. When that caterpillar goes into the final stage of its metamorphosis before becoming the actual caterpillar of the butterfly, it's spectacular to watch that happen. But all butterflies and moths go into a cocoon or chrysalis as the caterpillar then is sort of encased in this waterproof cuticle covering. And the liquefaction of the caterpillar and the rearranging of the cells into a beautiful butterfly or moth is it's just something I don't think science will really ever understand. But what you can do is put your arms like this, kind of give yourself a big hug, and imagine that you are in an actual chrysalis. And now it's time to have that chrysalis kind of crack open. And if you've ever had the opportunity to watch a butterfly emerge, especially monarch, it's really quite something. And I'm going to stand up a little bit here to give you the full look at this. And so the butterfly, when it comes out, its wings will unfurl. They're very damp and very wet, and they look like they're tissue paper, just kind of flapping about. The butterfly looks like it does this almost like a rocking back and forth. And over the course of several hours, blood will pump into those wings, they'll stiffen up, and then the butterfly is able to almost test those wings out and bring them up overhead a few times. So this again is a great stretch for anything from almost the waist up. I'm feeling like my rotator cuffs are really thanking me for this one. And then the butterfly will fly off. So you can take it as far as you want. You can dash about your garden as a flitting butterfly if you're so moved to do that. So butterfly wings is a great way to relieve that physical tension that many of us are carrying around in our upper thoracic area, because primarily the work that we're doing is a lot of it is on a device. One thing I wanted to mention is make sure that you are taking periodic breaks. If you do work from home or in an office where you're seated a lot, to get up and just do some just some gentle stretches to kind of get that lymphatic and blood flowing so you can remain healthy and focused. All right, sense of sight. So now we're going to delve into our senses and how we use our senses to really engage with our natural world.
Kelly,
So,
can I
yes.
just ask a few questions here? We've had a few questions kind of
Oh,
accumulate.
sure. All right, let's see if we can tackle them then.
Okay, all right. So do plants help keep the weather cooler when you plant flowers and you use them in your landscape?
They can, in the sense that, especially larger plants, like shrubs, you can see this is part of my backyard in the middle of the summer, and it looks like it's kind of like a almost a misty, moist condensation. So plants have that transpiration. So what they do is they produce moisture, which can make things feel a lot cooler. So that is one way that they can kind of keep things cool, and they can shade the ground to a large degree so that they're almost absorbing that sunlight. So I find if I'm in the garden space, I'm actually cooler there than I would be in the full sun, say out on my driveway.
So this next question might be a reference to the local co-op. They want to know, how can you keep rabbits and prairie dogs out of your backyard eating all of their lily leaves?
Well, you become a billionaire if you can figure that one out. Lots of people want to know that. Um, well, one thing is to try to find, again, go to the cooperative extension and find out what is not attractive to rabbits. I know, for example, deer here in my area and rabbits do not like daffodils. They don't like certain plants. They're unpalatable to them. Um, when in doubt, fencing is great too. So I know I tried putting some like chicken wire fencing around plants as they were getting established because the rabbits were sort of, attracted. It was like going to the salad bar. So that's one way to mitigate. But I think trying to deter them, and again, there's lots of things online that you can get natural products. Um, excuse me, I know people use mothballs. There's things that, because all of these animals have extremely acute sense of smell. That's how they'll find these lovely little edibles that you're trying to prevent them from eating. So if you can put something down that will deter them, a lot of times essential oils can be effective. But when in doubt, some type of fencing around a plant until it can get a little bit bigger and more well established can really go a long way.
And some of that may help answer this next question, which is they're harassed by deer who are chomping their beautiful azalea bushes and aquavitae trees and the natural deterrents. Are there any natural deterrents that are available that they can apply? And then secondly, they have these lovely balloon plants and they're being choked by lily of the valley, bayberry, and lipin.
Oh,
And
yes.
they pop up everywhere in the growing bed.
Yeah, lily of the valleys can be quite invasive. So if you can kind of, what I have done and things that are invasive in terms of plants, I put what we call a collar. So like a lot of the mint species, for example, you dig down and it's a little labor intensive at first, but it prevents the spread of the underground root systems. And you can get some of the metal flashing that you, for example, you'd put on the roof. And you can get that at a lot of the home centers and dig down around the plants and put down flashing probably 8 to 10 inches. So you have like a metal collar under the ground of stainless steel. So it's not going to rust or cause problems. That will prevent some of the spread of things like lily of the valley or mints that can run ruckshaw over your garden. As far as deer, I have had fantastic luck with my local garden center. It has a natural product. It's like deer off. It's putrefied eggs, and there's a few other things you could rummage in your kitchen cabinet to get it. They've perfected this so it doesn't have this horrendous smell that you can't go outside for several days, like what happened to me when I first applied it to deter the deer, rabbits, and some of the other chomping animals. But that is a natural one. It doesn't hurt them. It's not a pesticide. It's just putrefied eggs with, I think there's like cayenne and cinnamon. And it's almost like if your kids were let loose in the kitchen and concocted an experiment. It's but that's worth looking into. And now it's formulated so that, like, we had a heavy rain this week, and I know we're going to get 2 inches of rain here in New Hampshire tomorrow. So it's designed to withstand a pretty good rain, and then you'd have to apply it again. But what it does is it's so distasteful that it deters them, and then the idea that they'll stay away for good. So that's something that I've had personally very good luck with.
And then the last question I have is someone that is having trouble with feral cats and
Oh,
rats in the backyard habitat, and said that
yeah.
dealing with both of them is very stressful.
It is, I absolutely understand your stress. Feral cats, because again, they will take out a lot of the wildlife that you're probably hoping to attract. And there's nothing you can do about that other than maybe contact animal control in your community and see if they can intervene. That's a big problem in a lot of communities with cats that aren't spayed and neutered and they're reproducing outside and in that sort of a feral state. And then again, coming back to the rats, there are ways to deter. There are some humane type of trapping, but please avoid rodenticides at all costs. It truly just exacerbates the problem because, again, of those high level raptors, the fox, the owls, the hawks that are keeping those populations in check. If we take those out by inadvertently poisoning them, then it's going to be even more challenging to sort of keep those populations in check. I know the city of Boston or parts of Boston are doing some amazing things, very creative things to sort of try to trap the rats without resorting to poisons. The town, I think it's the city of Lowell, has just been working on passing ordinances against applying those, they call SCARs, second generation anticoagulant rodenticide. SCAR is the term that the rehabbers in that community are seeing so many animals come in and bleeding out because of accidental poisoning. So if we can kind of do our homework and find other ways to mitigate those unwelcome situations, we'll be better off.
And then Kelly, can you just repeat the name of, was it called Deer Off, that mixture of
I
unpleasant stuff?
Yeah, I wish I could race down to my garage and get it. I think it is like a deer repellent, deer off, liquid fence, I think is another name. There's a couple of different ones that like I shop at Osborne's Farm and Garden Center. It used to be the Agway here in Hooksett, and they have that there. I've gotten it there. Um,
Okay, that's great. Then they'll know where to look.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just, I mean, I drenched a couple of plants with it when I first got it because I was so irritated with the deer and then it took it took about 3 minutes and I thought, oh my gosh, I had to shut windows and doors and then it rained a little bit, which made it worse. It was just awful, but they have reformulated it since that that
Oh, good.
situation.
All right,
Yeah.
that's all the questions for now. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. All right, so let's think about our sense of sight. This is a sense that many of us use primarily throughout the day because we navigate our world with our vision. So it stands to reason that we want to be able to use it for our well-being. Just a quick little note that I heard a natural educator, she was an Indigenous woman, say this 2020, and I'll never forget it because it was so impactful. If you are working on a device, and every 20 minutes, you should look up 20 feet away from your device for 20 seconds. So that will sort of help with that eye fatigue. So there's another little thing to tuck away for keeping your eyes in good shape. But if we think about, especially this time of year, in May, the trees are just covered with beautiful shades of green that aren't quite leafed out yet here, at least in my yard. So one thing you can do is to look, and this is a good neck stretch, look all the way up and notice the clouds in the skyline, and then just very gently and slowly, intentionally bring your gaze all the way down to the ground and see what's at your feet. So again, you're getting that nice neck stretch that we've been wanting to get rid of that tension, and you're also tuning in and seeing what's going on in the areas around you because many times we're used to looking more horizontally, not so much vertically. But the next little tip is what I call Nature 360, and then a shorter version is Nature 180. If you can imagine yourself standing on a big turning wheel or a lazy Susan, for those of us, I'm dating my age here. When I say this to school kids, they have absolutely no idea what a lazy Susan, but many of us probably on the call do. So a slow turning wheel, get yourself out in your garden or another natural area. Make sure that the ground is fairly, stable, so you're not going to tip over. And then very slowly turn yourself on that imaginary wheel, setting the intention to what am I noticing? What colors, what textures, are there birds? As you turn very slowly, 360 degrees. So come back to where you started and then just focus on what did I notice? And if you have time or you're so inclined, go the opposite direction. And I will guarantee you'll notice something completely different. This happens to me every time. A shortened version of that is what we call Nature 180. So again, a beautiful neck stretch here. I'm all about the neck stretch. You can just put your neck, say, over to the right, look over your right shoulder. The same thing, set the intention as you just gently scan with soft eyes the whatever the vision is in front of you, and then come over to the left and then just go back the opposite way. So one thing that's amazing about the human brain is we think we can multitask. It is a complete and utter myth. For anyone who's tried to do two things effectively at the same time, it cannot be done. So the benefit for this is if you are setting the intention to actually notice something, what kind of birds am I seeing as I do these scans of my environment? You're less likely to be able to effectively fret and worry. And for someone who can worry with the best of them, these are wonderful strategies to just give my brain and anxiety a little bit of a break. This is something as a elementary teacher and a naturalist that I created, and I love doing this with kids, but I do it with my own backyard myself. Is you just take maybe a 3-foot section of yarn and you tie it together, and you have an instant discovery loop. So you can put this down on the ground, maybe a patch of clover or grass, or even some rocks and moss in between. And now you have a focused study area. You can do different shapes with it and just watch. Take some breaths, sit in a chair, sit on a cushion, and just find out what's going on in that little micro habitat right there. So it's all about setting intentions when we are looking at things using our sense of sight. Okay, sense of hearing. Again, hearing is something that kind of operates, at least for me, on the background. It's not a sense that I really tune into unless there's a loud noise like a clap of thunder or something. Or this time of year as a birder, I'm all about hearing the bird song. Sound maps are something that I use often with kids, but I've done it with adults and it's a lot of fun. So you can have just a piece of white paper, draw a big circle, designate an X in the middle. I usually have mine on the clipboard because I'm sitting in my garden area. And this is great. You take a couple of those deep cleansing breaths that we discussed, and then close your eyes and imagine if you could triangulate where sounds are coming from. Oh, is that chickadee coming from my left? Oh, no, it's behind me now. And you can open your eyes and designate on your sheet where you're hearing the sound and if you can identify what it is. It might be a neighbor's dog barking, children playing. So what it does is it really starts to hone our sense of hearing so we could utilize that sense a little more readily. And again, you get the benefit of if you're paying attention to what beautiful sounds in nature, you're not really worrying about what is going on your to-do list or what you're sort of trying to get away from or trying to calm down from. Water fountains, again, we talked about that little gurgling or bubbling or streams. We are just like wildlife, we're attracted to the sound of water because it's very soothing. And again, you can close your eyes and hear it more deeply. If you are someone that walks in your neighborhood with friends or a dog, or even I walk in my neighborhood, I go at least 5 mornings a week. I never wear earbuds or earphones because I want to hear what's happening. I want to hear the maybe the buzz of the crickets as it gets a little into summer, the chirp of birds, bird song. So you can have purposeful walks and really focus on your sense of hearing. All right, sense of touch. Many of us navigate our world using our sense of touch without really thinking about what we're doing. And this is a great place to sort of pay attention to that, the textures, what you're experiencing, what things feel like in your garden, especially this time of year as the stones, if you have stones in your garden, are warming up in the sun. My moss, I was out this morning feeling the moss in my garden and up a path into the woods, and it was gorgeous. It was emerald green, and it was so filled with water that when I touched some of the moss, it was almost like a green sponge that I could wring out. So I can imagine it will probably be floating away tomorrow after 2 inches of rain. But pine cones and other little things, the textures of the leaves as they're just starting to come out on plants and trees are soft, they're supple, as opposed to when we get more into fall and they're dried out if they've gone through their life cycle. So use your hands, be mindful, set that intention of what do I think that this texture of that leaf will feel like? Is that stone going to be warm or will it be cool? So again, your mind will come off the worries as you're deploying your sense of touch. And definitely, this is a great time of year to shed your shoes and socks and get those bare feet out there, connect them with the vibration, the magnetic force of our earth, and really truly ground yourself with either dewy grass. Some people like that texture. I'm still trying to work on that one. I love nice warm stones that I have around that pond. So enjoy your sense of touch, use it that way. Your sense of smell, our oldest, most primitive sense. And for those of you who understood the Lazy Susan reference, I am, as my mother calls, like a lassie. I have an incredibly heightened sense of smell, which can work against me in certain situations. But I do love to use smell because I can create memories with smell. That limbic system, I file it away like baking cookies. So you can do that too, because the olfactory bulb in our nose, it goes directly to the limbic system. There's a direct wiring there through our nervous system. So that's why sometimes smells are so heightened and provoke or evoke such strong memories. So seasonal fragrances. This morning I took my cup of coffee and I made an absolute beeline, to speak of garden talk, right out to those lilacs that were finally starting to bloom. It's my favorite garden scent. So I got my nose right in there. I closed my eyes. I did a couple of deep breaths so I could kind of tuck that memory of what those beautiful lilacs smell like. So I can actually retrieve that memory in December and January when there's really not much going on in my garden. Another little tip that you can create for yourselves, and this is fun to do with kids, what I call scent pillows. So I love essential oils. You can get them, different grocery stores. I got this vanilla one at Whole Foods the other day. And you can fill a little snack bag with a couple of cotton balls and just kind of dab maybe 8 or 9 drops of oils. Be very careful. They can be potent. You want to make sure that you're not putting in contact with your eyes. Seal the bag up and then poke a few holes with a toothpick or maybe the sharp end of a paper clip so that anytime you can get that sense of smell. I have them stuck in my car, my work bag, my pocketbook. So people wondering, what is that woman eating? It's kind of an odd little marshmallow collection she has there, the scent pillows. So a great way to use our sense of smell. Sense of taste. This is coming into the season where eating al fresco is so much easier. This is my back patio where I had a wonderful salad I made last fall. And I sat out there all bundled up and ate it and just really enjoyed that crisp fall air. So mindful meals. We need to nourish ourselves by nourishing our mind and calming down, using your senses when you prepare your meals or when think about the crunch sound of things as you cut fresh vegetables or you crunch those fresh carrots as you're eating them. Send a little note of thanks to that farmer mentally as you're eating this wonderful food that was grown for our nourishment. Silence your devices. This is a time where laptops should be shut down, um, phones silenced. And then again, when I talked about how we can set that intention in our nervous system to know what's coming, you could even use beautiful placemats, tablecloths, candles, ways that sets the intention that this is a dining ritual. This is an experience. This isn't just a grab and go, shoving food down and wondering why you have indigestion. So slow down, really enjoy, and make a mindful meal at least once a day. Your nervous system will thank you as well as your digestion. Okay, so let's kind of bring this all back together for the last few moments we have and think about ways that we can engage in these garden spaces, outdoor spaces the entire year. For many of you in the Northeast, like I live here in Southern New Hampshire, winter can be a little bit more challenging. But one thing I just want to emphasize that you want to dress for the weather and explore with your senses. There's an old expression, there is no bad weather, there's just poor clothing choices. So as we think about the seasons kind of coming and going, be prepared with the appropriate clothing and plan for time in your garden or these outdoor spaces by being dressed appropriately. Know what the weather is going to be like. To me, there's no bad weather except for that thunderstorm we had about a half hour, an hour ago. That's time to stay inside for safety. So plan that garden time right in. Make it part of your routine, your rituals throughout the day. I love that morning time in my garden with that second cup of coffee as I meander through. I've really carved that in. And it's been incredible wellness studio time for me. Take pictures, like you can see here is my water garden in 3 of the 4 seasons, that I love to look back and I can remember what those sensations and smells and touches were like. Even the cold, I love being outside on a cold, snowy day. One thing that I've just recently gotten into is nature journaling. I'm actually teaching a couple of courses on this fall to get a blank journal and to really start to look at the details of something and try to sketch it. You don't have to be a Rembrandt to do this, to have fun. It's a great way to mindfully engage with the space and then maybe write a few little comments. The 10-minute me breaks. This was an illuminating moment a couple of years ago. I was teaching a bunch of teachers. We were doing a self-care sort of stress management workshop. And one teacher said, "Oh, I would give anything for 10 minutes just to myself." And I thought, well, okay, what will we do with that 10 minutes? Because we all can find 10 minutes. If you can't find 10 minutes throughout the day, there's other things that we need to chat about. So if you want to create a list of 10 minutes, things that things that you would do for yourself if you had 10 free moments. And I would strongly suggest this is not even part of it. No device. So you want to really engage your senses. Is it sitting out with a cup of tea? Is it taking that book and reading for 10 minutes, that chapter that you just can't wait to get to when you get in bed, but like me, within minutes, you're sound asleep? Bring that book out into the garden, sketch, journal, even talk on the phone with a friend might be something to do. Write a letter. So things that will sort of fill your cup that you can do in 10 minutes. Make a list of them and schedule them right in on your calendar. So if you get notifications on your calendar when things are coming up, like a to-do list thing, put it right in there until it becomes a habit. Because it's so important to give yourself that time to the restorative activities that really fill your cup. And I think the final parting word that I would focus us on is enjoy. There is so much to benefit us, our well-being, by being outside. So find what resonates and what works for you and enjoy it and put it into your everyday practice throughout the entire year. So that's kind of my little takeaways from my own garden time. So I hope that you've been able to grab a few little ideas that you can start putting into place. Again, this month is gorgeous. It's easy now in May to get outside. So start those practices, start those strategies while we have the opportunity and the weather is in our favor. So thank you for joining me and enjoy your outdoor space.
Well, thank you, Kelly, for providing such valuable suggestions for enhancing our enjoyment and relaxation in our gardens and outdoor spaces. This was a great workshop. And thank you to our audience for joining us tonight. I hope you enjoyed learning with us. If you enjoyed this workshop with Kelly, then you will love her nature walks with AARP New Hampshire. Please check aarp.org/NH regularly for virtual and in-person programs offered by AARP New Hampshire. And then I just wanted to share that you have lots and lots of thank yous coming through, which I think is just great.
Thank
And
you.
someone was talking about how relaxing it is to hear the birds chirping, because if you hear them chirping, that means they're not stressed, they're happy. And so that should help us to feel happy.
Another cue from Mother Nature that we need to replicate.
That's right. So thank you so much. Be well and take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.